How we doing? We feeling good? We're looking good? Smelling good? That was a good night last night. We had a good time? Anybody? Oh yeah, we hit that hard. That was awesome. And we got a good crowd this morning. Sometimes it gets a little thin here on Tuesday morning. A little thin. But no doubt you guys are here because we want to listen to our panel speakers this year. I think we got a really good set of folks that are representative of our customer base. And so I'm excited about having these guys introduce themselves here, and then we'll get into some questions. And then about 10, 15 minutes at the end, we'll leave some time for the audience to ask questions as well. So with that, let's start here and introduce yourself, and we'll go down the line. Alex?
Good morning. My name is Alex Yanez. I've been in the hospital system for about 16 years, 8 of those on the open heart team, and then followed by 2 of those developing a tissue tracking system for our hospital, and then when being corporate-wide, and then SVD manager ever since. So fairly backgrounded in surgery.
Thank you, Alex.
Howdy. My name is Derek Boyd from Memorial Hermann in Houston, Texas. I've been in sterile processing for just slight of 9 years. Came up as a team lead and then managed, and now I'm a project manager for the 12 hospital system, working with the database Maestro.
Morning, everyone. My name's Doug McGovern. I'm a supervisor of sterile processing at Renown Regional in Reno, Nevada. Been there a little over 10 years now. I worked my way up. I started in the OR as an orderly and got to gradually progress in there. I'm excited to be here, so I hope you got some good questions.
Good morning. My name is Chrissy Knabe. I'm at the Cincinnati VA. I have 29 years of healthcare experience. From the MICU to nursing supervisor. I was an OR tech, and now I'm enjoying myself in sterile processing.
Good morning. Everybody awake?
Oh yeah.
I'm Cody from Williamson Medical Center, which is about 10 or 15 miles down the road here, so I'm local. I've got about 10 years experience healthcare. Part of that was a sales rep, the rest in CS. Got my MBA from Western Governors, and just glad to be here and be with you awesome people.
Very good. Can you describe your process to track the maintenance of your assets?
The process. Well, we scan it in for one, but we like to, of course, you use the maintenance module for your instrumentation, some of your equipment too. But we took it a little step further, and now we kind of track our case cards through there and our autoclave racks, our washer racks, just to kind of see if it's happening more frequently, what our biggest issues are. But we put everything through there, scopes, power. It's a very handy tool.
On the Maestro side, we use our repair module, and we have a tailored cycles of use set up for each individual tray inventory item, and can tailor it to the actual use of that item. Neuro and microplastics and things like that we have set to a far lower cycle versus a retractor system that may only go out every 100, 150 cycles for inspection.
Two-part question. For those that are using the washer module, do you also keep track of your washer tests electronically? And what pieces of wash equipment are you testing, and how are you documenting?
So we use a washer module, and we track our ultrasonics, the toe size that we put in there, and then we confirm them if they pass or fail. And then we also do our washer disinfectors, and we scan in the test of the strips into that.
We also use the Maestro software by creating a disposable item of the test cycle for the washers for the CtUC. We also have got a washer inspection for the arms and detergent levels. And we document that all in using the washer in module of Maestro.
Very good. How do you use the scope module to reprocess your scopes?
In my last facility, I'll start with the things that we didn't do. We didn't have the new foot pedals that you guys have. We didn't have the magic bracelet. We weren't using the RFID on the scopes yet. All right, so now that we know those things are coming, we'll definitely entertain those. We used them for the IFUs, and then the Deacon Town module, we actually had Olympus's IFUs inside the Deacon Town module, so if the techs ever had questions, they could literally just reference it right there on the screen. We would also use it to document our leak tests, and we could use it for patient tracking. So whenever scopes came back, they always came back with a patient sticker as well, so we had barcodes on the scope, so we could scan the barcode, scan the patient label. That way we could also bidirectionally track the patient to the scope. And then we would scan it into the sterilizer. Now at that time, they weren't interfaced, but they are now. So.
Describe for us a current initiative that your department is working on.
So we are initiating LunarLink. It has been going very well. There are some hiccups, but that's how everything when you start out happens. Our vendors, it's really important to make sure that your vendors are educated and really understand how to use it. That's where the process, and we're still working on it, is one of our biggest issues. They didn't realize, like, when they confirm a case and enter all their trays in, when they don't have to have them all there on that day. They could come and enter them later. But it's really helped us in our process of when they drop them off, because it links right into the Lunar module, and then we print out our labels and put them on our trays.
Currently, right now, I'm using Censis to organize all the instrumentation assembly. So one of our challenges is, well, I walk in and there's Kelly's, Cryles, whatever, you have it everywhere. So we have designated places for everything, tool cabinets, pegboards, whatever you have it. So what I started doing is I started labeling these cabinets with specific locations, 8 through J, and in the drawers 1 through 8 or whatever it is, or pegboard, and even breaking down the pegboard in certain quads. So as I I started marking these into the system. When the technician pulls up the count sheet on that particular instrument, my goal, or what we've been doing, is they can hit that instrument and then hit details, and it'll give them the specific layout for where that instrument should be at, whether it's H3, pegboard, or whatever you have it. The goal is if you can find the goal is if you go to the cabinet and it's not there, you need to walk away. Don't waste time looking around for everything else that you don't need. It also helps me, and I call her Jennifer, order instrumentation, because we can open that drawer and we know we're low on mosquitoes, knife handles, the ball tips for the what are those? I'm sorry. Yes. And things like that, things that go missing in surgery. So I've been using that for about 1.5 years, and it's really worked out well.
Awesome.
We're working on unifying 12 hospitals' databases. Excuse me. With 10 years and 500 people entering things in the database, we're unifying all of our descriptions on our count sheets and trying to get to a standardized process for entry for all 12 hospitals for their inventory items.
How are you using the loaner module to help track trays that are dropped off at your facility?
Well, we definitely use it frequently. It's a good tool. I'm really hoping we can get the loaner link to kind of link into there too. But every tray that comes in, we have our check-in station in Decatam, so they'll come in. We're lucky enough to have an FTE to cover the check-ins for the loaners. So there's a phone back there, a vendor comes in, picks it up, it'll ring directly to our implant specialists, and so they'll meet them at the check-in station, get all the documentation ready, and then they'll log it into the loaner module. And because we have the OR scheduler as well, they can put the case ID in there, they'll look it up in Epic, link it to the patient there, and then it will follow through the process and go up with the case cart with the regular instrumentation.
So we use the Lunar module, obviously, and the Lunar link has tremendously helped us because now it connects with the Lunar module. And we take pictures of all the trays so we know exactly what's in them. The vendors then could see that, yes, we are making them accountable, and also ourselves, that what they bring in is what they will return. I run not a quality feedback, but I run some data on how many trays come in under 48 hours, so I can run reports through the sterilization and only pull up the Lunar trays, so then I can monitor who's bringing them in on time and who isn't, to make the vendors become more accountable. And let's see, what else? I mean, it's a great module to use for your vendor trays coming in.
Very good. How have you utilized the quality feedback module? Have you used it? And if so, does your OR staff utilize it as well as CS? And what types of issues do you track through the quality feedback module?
So the OR does not use it as well as CS, but the ones they do, it's great because you can customize it to the problems of the instrumentation, whether they're broken, sharp, need to be sharpened, or other quality issues. The great thing about that is it stops that, a conversation of, I marked it, I tagged it, and I'm getting the same cryle again. Well, there's 1,800 cryles throughout the department. I'm pretty sure you're not getting the same one. One thing that I do like is when you can go to the room and you show the nurse or the staff, they buy into it. But not only that, when you can just go ahead and mark a tray for maintenance right then and there, that's really great because it shows the surgeon that, oh, okay, he's paying attention. They're going to go ahead and send that out on the next round of maintenance. And it just helps with the communication between the OR and SPD. As far as what I'm looking for right now is, I wouldn't say rust, but I'm kind of trying to track what's going on with certain instrumentation sometimes, like out of the ordinary well. Things are going to break, things are going to be sharpened, but we come across spots, it's easy for me to go back and see that the room sprayed the instrumentation. And 9 times out of 10, they didn't. And that just makes it difficult for everyone in CS and all around. But you can use that to go back to the coordinators and show them what's going on, and then they'll correct it with data.
We utilized it at my last facility, in CS. My OR, the circulators were too busy to use the quality feedback, so they missed out on the opportunity to provide us with quality feedback. However, in Deacontown, my techs that were in Deacontown used it, and we would use it to track things like when instruments come back that were closed or not sprayed, any sharps that come back. I mean, that never happens at my facility. I don't know about any of y'all's, but it was available to them if they wanted to. But the CS, the Deacontown techs would do that, and after we seen a trend, what I actually did was went to the reports and created an exception report. If you're not familiar how the exception reports work, those are awesome. But anytime there was anything recorded in quality events, the next morning at 5 a.m., a quality event was reported to the OR manager and me. And so she was forced to look at it when instruments come back unacceptable or sharps came back or something like that. So there wasn't anything I had to do, and she didn't have the option to ignore it. And then on our clean side, the assembly side, we also, kept ourselves in check. If something made it through the Deacontown process, the assembly techs could do a quality event and scan the tray, and then it could be tied back to whoever decontaminated it. So it was both internal and relationship with our OR. So absolute great option, great module to use, especially if you can utilize those exception reports.
Yep.
So quality feedback is one of my favorite modules. I created categories of all the issues that I want to track. No external indicator, no internal indicator, hole in the wrapper. And what I do then is I print off a monthly report and I show what our non-conforming products are based off of what we have sterilized. So I then run a sterilization load report and I show that, you know, we have this many non-conforming products to overall of how many we sterilize and assemble. We also use it, as he said, in decon when trays come down. We'll report out saying that sharps were identified and is a quality feedback to the OR. And we use it in prep. My QA assurance person, he QAs the trays. So he'll go in there saying that he'll scan the tray and say that makes sure that all the things that are supposed to be with the tray are there. And our OR staff was very hesitant on working with us, but we have a close relationship, so our OR staff do enter all the information and provide that back to us. I'm trying to work on the clinics to be able to do it. It's more getting the technology of computers down to them to be able to do it. They want to do it, but I think it's the lack of technology that's helping us get their information.
Mm-hmm. Can someone share with us how you're using the competency module?
Competency module is another fun, exciting module for me because then I could put in there and track with the staff and show them exactly this step you're doing. Yes, you could do that. Are you doing this step? Yes, you're doing that. Then the staff have to go in and sign that they did that competency, and they're verifying to themselves that yes, they did do it, along with the educator who approves it. I also use it as an education way. Instead of just having your directions on how to do trays, for educational opportunities, we would set up instruments, and they had to identify them. So on a paper, they would identify the instruments, and then the educator would go back and say if they completed those instruments, and based off of how many they identified, would give them a pass or a fail rating. So the competency module could be used in a lot of different ways, not just saying these are the steps of how you do your procedures.
Haven't instituted this at my newest facility yet, but the way that we used it at my previous facility was we had our initial competencies, so whenever a new hire would come in, or if we had to use a traveler or PRN, we would do their initial training. And so it was a little bit more higher level, more introductory type stuff, and it was a one and done type thing. With the scopes, we would basically almost copy and paste the IFUs from scopes, from things like robots, the more complex things. And then we would set those up on an annual basis where annually everybody had to at minimum review those. We didn't always use it as a check-off tool as much as information. And then we also included things like biological reading, how to do load recalls, a lot of the stuff that they really, really need to know how to do, but hopefully they never have to do, or it's very infrequently. So the real complex stuff and the infrequent stuff is the stuff that we use the module for.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, Mike, I want to say something. Mm-hmm. So with the competency module, if they fail one of their competencies that you put in there, and then they go to scan that tray, it won't allow them to do it. It'll stop them. So it's a really good way of ensuring that your staff know what they're doing and that they're providing that good quality patient care.
Yep. Is anyone case tracking? And if so, how has it helped you with patient safety?
So about 3 weeks ago, it was Monday morning at 4 a.m. I get a phone call. Told me I need to get to the office because there's a possible CJD case that happened over the weekend. So I get there and really fast. And basically, there was a patient that had surgery over the weekend, and they decided to test that patient for that, and everyone's freaking out. So at that point, I have managers in my office trying to figure out what sets were used for that case. So just being able to pull up case tracking, plug in the number, I was able to identify all the sets that were used there on that case on that weekend day. We pulled them, we quarantined them, and then understand there's more to this. So this would, if this was positive, and it wasn't, but there was where I'm like, well, what's going to happen? This stuff went through the washer. This, how can you ensure that the safety of everything at this point is going to be okay? Come to find out that it was a new admitting doctor that's just testing everyone for that. So it was just like a new process that they didn't tell us. So over the weekend, everyone got tested for CJD, and they went and talked to them. They stopped that, and I got to stare at trays in my office for about 2 weeks, and so hey, okay, I'll just keep him here. But it just, it was kind of interesting just being able to pull those instruments within 2 minutes just to figure out what was used in that room at that particular time, like that instant. And I kept on going back to the director. I'm like, can you imagine if we didn't have Censis? I mean, how are we going to even figure this out? I can't even get the nurses to scan sometimes, but let alone, I got to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we link that in with the schedule. So we're very fortunate at that point.
Love that tune. Love that tune. Let me hear it again. And we got to be careful. We got to be careful of the nurses, man. We don't want to dump on the nurses. We got a lot of nurses out here. I'm saying.
I love nurses. They're fine.
Good old case tracking. It's a good way to assure that you are complying with patient safety. That's why we're there. We've had it for a few years now, but the one instance I did have with case tracking involved a little visitor, a Joint Commission visitor, and luckily he was like, you know what, demonstrate it. He found a patient on the schedule actually. Was like, show me this information. And it was all there, and it was a good way just to verify what was used on the patient. It made him happy, so that made me happy.
So I've actually seen case tracking done 2 different ways. One was a case card assembly. So we build a case cart, patients on there, everything scanned to the case cart. The biggest issue that we had with that was if the OR had to run back and grab a pill pack or basically run back and grab anything. I couldn't consistently depend on that information to be captured. The vast majority of time that was a pill pack, not a tray, but it's still something that we wanted to be able to track. As of late, we actually do the case tracking in Deacontown. And so when the case comes back, it comes back with a patient label, and they actually send back the pill pack labels with it. And so then everything's captured. You're not asking the nursing or the OR staff to do anything extra, just not throw away the pill packs. And so the labels come back with it, and everything is tracked there. One of the ways it's helped with patient safety is anytime there has been an event or a need to, we have been able to demonstrate either there are or are not tendencies. And so, in a series of a few weeks or a few cases, when challenged, we could demonstrate that there were no consistencies in the CS department. The same washer wasn't consistently used. It wasn't the same CS tech. It wasn't the same sterilizer. The loads were good. The biologics passed. So basically, politely, wasn't us, go look somewhere else. And so that was good for us.
Doug, you mentioned Joint Commission a minute ago, I think. They often ask what quality initiatives you're working on and how you're gathering the data and how you're measuring it. How has your system helped you when it comes time for a Joint Commission visit? I know you brought it up, but whoever wants to answer that.
The only digging they've really done in my Censis track is mostly the case tracking information. We have gone in and shown them IFUs, so we make sure to put all the IFUs in there, so demonstrating what the text will see in decontam was a critical component of it all. But once we showed him that, gave him that example of the case tracking, so he saw how it all worked. Next, it was all just processes. And making sure all our logs were up to date, everything signed off, and good to go. But with the Censis track, all they really wanted to see was the case tracking, and then we showed them the IFUs.
During our last Joint Commission audit, the case tracking was a major component, and the ability to easily follow their tracer, the trays that were used on that tracer or surgical case. We were able to pull up the case cart, have a listing of all the trays, and then go back and show them, well, here's the process for all these trays, here's the sterilizer loads, here's the biological records for those, and the previous case IDs for those trays. So they were very happy with that. The other thing is a quality initiative is our documentation of our washer testing. They were pretty happy with.
What reports would you recommend a new user to utilize or an established user that would want to start trending tasks in the department?
Well, first I would say absolutely learn to use the exception reports. Once you learn to use the exception reports and you get those set up like you want, you don't have to go and retrieve anything. You go in, you open your email, and it's there waiting on you. You open your phone, it's there waiting on you. You don't have to do any work once it's done. So that goes across anything. Exception reports they're great. Absolutely learn to use them. As far as individual reports, maintenance exception report. So set that up according to however you maintain your instruments. Again, I also set that up on an exception report. So the previous day it comes to me and my team lead. There's no question. I don't have to go pull it. Your sterilization reports, and we'll do that by type and by tech. And that's one of the ways on a daily basis to keep an eye on who's doing what, as well as a total quantity of what's being done. But it separates peel pack and containers, so we can keep an eye on that. And then we also do that on a daily and monthly basis. That way, at the end of the month, when I see the previous month's sterilization report come out, that prompts me, and we'll actually take that and put it into an Excel file, put it on this nice pretty chart, and post it for everybody to see.
Like Cody said, the exception reports are phenomenal. They're very helpful. I have quite a few set up, so we have a reoccurring issue that comes up every day with missing items. So we have exception reports set up so we can see the activity on those missing racks that we have set up. Excuse me. Another one I've got set up is quality feedback. So I like to get those reports regularly just to make sure we're following up with the staff on any issues that they're putting in there. Another big one that we actually just started doing was for sterilizer indicators. Now we've got quite a few sterilizers at my facility, and while it is interfaced into CensiTrack, there tends to be some events sometimes where somebody forgets to pass something, or they put in the biological information wrong. Now it prompts you to stop, but there are occasions where the technicians will just keep on going. So I have it set up in 3-day intervals, so every day I'll get a report saying if a BI was unrecognized, a Bowie Dick was unrecognized. That's super helpful. And then we also do monthly reports on instruments processed and all of our equipment processed, and that really helps us justify the number of employees we have, and if we need more to accommodate any additional work coming up on that busy season.
Is anyone using the BI interface? And if so, what type and how long is the read time?
We're using it. We run a BI in every load, whether it's steam or low temp. Time is around 24 minutes. It's great. It's really a feature that you can show TJC. they always like to see how you keep your records, and you can go in there and they're looking for the control. Is it matching up? Is that positive? Is there, or where's the technician's manual part of it, if you will, hitting positive or negative and all that stuff. Those days of, and I still get this question, it's got implants, but it's got implants. And we're like, we're okay. It's a 24-minute readout. I remember it was 3 hours. When I started, it was 3 hours. And that was horrific, but now we're at 24 minutes. So it's a great tool, and the interface along with CensiTrack, marrying the loads is what makes it better at the end of the day.
We also use the 24-minute reads from 3M, which are awesome. It really helps in those trying times. But the best thing I like about the interface too is that it lets you select which type of biological you're going to place, whether it's for gravity, pre-vac, and even the low temp stuff. Where was I going with this?
That was, how many fireball shots you have last night, dude? Was it 3 or was it 4? I want to know. You got to keep track here.
I think I'm still on the boat. Sorry. But the interface is good. It's a good tool because it allows you to, instead of writing everything down, who wants to write that stuff down? So having that interface in there with the automatic reads, the staff won't have to go back into a load to make sure they pass it. It's a really helpful tool.
How do you demonstrate to the Joint Commission or other regulatory entities that you're following key sterile processing procedures to ensure patient safety throughout the perioperative loop?
Flash and all. So you got a general idea what they're going to be looking for when you come back. So they're also on a very strict timeline most of the time. So what we do is as soon as we can bring them back, show them CensiTrack and show them how organized it is and how convenient it is. And we run them through as much information that we want to show them as fast as we can. And we basically try to fill that time gap with the information we want them to have, not the information that they want to know. But what we do is we always demonstrate the washer test. We actually use a flatbed scanner. And so after the washer test or come out clean and positive, we'll actually take images of the CtUC test and upload them so we can go and demonstrate, pull up all the tests, all the passes or fails, and we can actually show an image of it. And we fill their time with those things. And the same thing with the Bowie Dix. We take an image of the Bowie Dix, successful pass, the biological reads. Yeah, I guess that's all of those.
I utilize it as far as when we do a leak test on the sterilizers. It's great. We do it on Mondays, and it populates. So when TJC shows up, you can show them that you're running a leak test consistently on Mondays, and it shows you what's going on. And you talk a little bit about what you're really looking for as far as the MLB bars and stuff like that as they're creeping up, and it's time for maintenance, if you will. Along with the BIs, it's great to just be able just to capture all that information and go back months and years and just pull it up in front of them. And they really like that. So that's one of the key features that we use in Censis.
Let me try and get a few more questions in before we turn it over to the audience. What is a new feature in CensiTrack or Maestro that you think a lot of people may not know about?
I'm going to go ahead and use a lifeline on this one.
Yeah.
And just phone
Good luck to you.
No, I like the assembly part on this, where some people might not know that you can actually take your own picture and upload it, because a lot of the catalog pictures might not look, to what you have. Codman Crawl doesn't look the same as it did 10 years ago at the end of the day. So you can customize that, and it gives it a real feel when the technician is assembling the set, and it gives them that extra measurement of I'm putting the right instrument in, I got the picture and the number, and I got the scan, so a trifecta, if you will.
In Maestro, there's the option of flagging instrument set for a quick turnaround, and that can generate data points that we can query reports on to look at needs for additional instrument purchases. And we're working on the road of completely eliminating IUSS and getting that new inventory in. This gives us data to challenge our bean counters to why we need this. Another function in the assembly module that is enhanced in Maestro is the ability to see what other trays came down with something if you find something missing. There's basically a map to your scavenger hunt of that missing instrument. It may be in one of those other trays.
Very good. We have a few minutes before this session is over, and I've got Hannah Montgomery, manager of the service desk, and Jason Rawlings, the director of clinical services. They've got microphones, so I'd offer for someone here who'd like a question to pose to the group.
I would like to know, when you first had SensorTrack put in, how long did it take your staff to get efficient with it? How long did it take for your staff to get efficient with using SensorTrack?
I think for me, the struggle was with the veterans, if you will. That was a struggle going paperless, to be honest with you. Just to let go of that paper was wow. The newer kids, letting go of their phones is another thing. Or
The newer kids?
yeah, it was just
Really?
millennials. Nothing bad. I'm just. I would say it's easier to get a newer person that just came out of school than it is a veteran to break those habits. A veteran, I would say something anywhere between, if you're pulling cases, probably 6 months to be efficient on that system, and a newer person, roughly about 8, to where you get them just clicking on everything. I think we're talking about the same thing. Of course, you're going to have some people who are going to catch on faster, but I give a new person about 6 months to make them competent on all aspects.
I like to say something. So, you have a variety of different age groups in sterile processing. I have staff that don't. I have staff that can't utilize Outlook, like basic email, but they could do SensorTrack back and forth and everything else. It's a very easy it's very user-friendly. They had everything set up so, workflow, it has these categories in there. The staff love pulling up their own productivity. They sort of compare it against each other. They'll run their own productivity reports, which is really neat. And the staff are always like, oh, can we do this in SensorTrack? They said that I wasn't communicating enough, so they started they wanted me to start putting messages. So when they log in, if my Army coordinator changed a tray or there was something else, the message pops up when they go in to open up the modules. So it's very user-friendly.
For those of you that use Cydex OPA, how do you track that in SensorTrack?
Cydex OPA. Do you track that in SensorTrack? Cydex? HLV? Yeah. Sorry, I don't track it there. I'm on paper.
So we don't track it either, but at a previous facility, I believe at one point it was an option in the sterilization options. Not 100% certain on that, but that seems familiar that we've used that as an option for when we had a scope leak or something like that. So we basically made that soaking station a location for that.
Okay, I do, for TEE probes, I do track it in SensorTrack. I will scan saying that it's in the echocardio cath lab, and then I'll scan the TEE probe, and then my staff scan in the reports the strips that come off of the TD100. So I do track our TD100s. We just haven't moved on to the Cydex. have disposable laryngoscopes.
Okay.
Another question?
Go in and say what you want to track in the sterilizer. And so I did a strip. And then that's how we test the high-level disinfection and load it up that way.
We have time for one more question if we've got one.
Come on, Hannah, move a little faster.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I usually have a loud Army voice and I don't need any microphone, but I created a sterilizer and named it HDL, and then you can go in and I'm not really good on technical terms, but CtUC helped me walk through what I wanted to pick for to read an indicator, to upload a strip, and that's how I did it, was creating a sterilizer. I don't think you're on. You don't have your
Yeah,
on.
not on. So just to add to that, it's been added also for CtUC OPA to where you can add temperatures, and you can set your machines up to use CtUC OPA and record temperatures in batches for CtUC.
Very good. Well, thank you all. Please join me in a round of applause to our speakers this morning. And I'd ask you to stay in place while we reset for the next presentation, which will be here. Thank you.